Laurie Huston's News for the Heart is dedicated to helping you give a voice to your own soul. Our hearts have the power to free us from pain and the struggles that keep us from awakening to our true essence. Join Laurie now as we delve into our heart and soul to find the path that will open us to the possibilities and lead us to the life we love to live.
And good afternoon. This is News for the Heart. Well, we're back. It's September. It's the last Tuesday of the month, which means I have my awesome co-host Tom Campbell with me. We've been on a journey, Tom. We've been doing this for quite a while now. So, and of course our shows are all about love versus fear. And since you did this amazing quote that Donna put up, just be love, thought we'd start there and see where it goes because, well, just be love. It's positive, it's wonderful, and that's the only way we can get through these fears, to be love.
It's one of those things that rolls off the tongue easily. It's very simple to say, but a lot harder to actually implement. It's just be love. It's simple. You can have a happy life, feel great, feel full of peace and satisfaction. Yet you have to do is just be love.
Yeah.
Like, okay, thank you very much, but that really wasn't very helpful. That's the problem with those big, distill it all into a soundbite kind of things. Is they don't really help people very much, but it does give you the big picture of what's important. Because that's really what's important. It's the choices you make relative to the people you meet. It's not so much how you talk to your plants or, picking up the paper you leave on the street. It's all those things are nice, but where the rubber meets the road as far as growing up is in relationship. It's how do you relate to other people? And unfortunately, most of us tend to be pretty self-centered. It's all about us, what we want, what we need. And the problem is, how do you get that, what you want and what you need? How do you get all those other people you relate to give you just what you want and what you need? Well, that starts the struggle. You start the struggle to get those people to give you that, and the struggle never ends. You think that, just in a little while, I'll get over this hump, and then it'll be all clear sailing downhill. It'll be easy once I get this fixed, but it doesn't work like that. There's always another bump in that road. After you get over the first one, there's the second one, and the third one, and the 100th one, and if you're trying to get other people to do the things that you need them to do for you to be happy and filled with satisfaction, you will probably never be happy nor find satisfaction, because that has to be something that comes from within you. That has to be the way you are, not the way somebody else is. So that's the key. It's not to manipulate the world to be the way you want it, which, of course, is, the way it should be and the best way for it to be. But besides all that, if you make your life about trying to do that and you're unhappy because it doesn't work, and you're struggling and you're miserable because you just can't seem to get the things you need to happen to you, they just don't. Or if they do, they come with thorns attached, and other problems and issues, and that's not what you need. So just getting it all just right is impossible, because what you have is all those people you interact with, they're all pretty much self-centered too, and they're all trying to get just what they need from you and from everybody else. So just imagine that. If you want to see a good example of it, look at a large daycare or first grade or kindergarten, and you'll see the same thing. I want that. No, Susie has it now, but I want it. You just will have that kind of behavior. And of course, as we're adults, we get a lot more sophisticated in the way we interact, and we don't show our emotions, and we have this image that we project that is very nice socially. But if inside that image, if inside of who you really are, you're struggling, life isn't the way you want, your needs aren't met, your cup isn't full, what all those little sayings we have, yeah, if that's just not happening for you, then that's the reason is you're trying you're trying to make it happen in the wrong way, in the wrong place.
And make it happen.
Yeah.
Do something to make it happen. Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, what you'll find is that if you try to make it happen by adjusting your outside reality, adjusting other people and other things, you generally make it worse.
Mm-hmm.
And the harder you try that, the worse it gets. And it'll get better if you just relax and kind of accept it the way it is. But then it'll get even better yet if you find that happiness and that security and that peace and that satisfaction inside yourself. And how do you do that? Well, just be love. How do you do that? You have to get rid of that self-centeredness. You have to think you are not the center of the universe. The things, your needs are your needs for a reason. Those needs that you have, that makes your glass usually, empty, and you just need these things. You're a dry sponge just waiting for somebody to be nice to you, Well, most of that comes from your fear. You feel that way. You have those needs because of the fears that you have. Most of those fears you picked up between the ages of 2 and 10. They're old fears, attitudes you picked up about life and the way things should be, and about how you are, and so on. Most of it's just old stuff that really doesn't even apply anymore, but you carry it around with you anyway. And you'll continue to carry it around with you the rest of your life if you don't make an effort to find that fear and get rid of it. And you just need to have a very strong intent to get rid of it. I really don't want to be that way. And if you have that seriously and strongly, give it 6 months and you will begin to get rid of it. But if it's just like, well, okay, I'll try for a few days and see if I fixes it, well, it's not going to fix it. You have to really want to enough to be serious about it. But then just having that intent will do a lot to fix it, because if you have that intent, you'll start doing all of the things you need to do in order to, get rid of that fear. You know how to get rid of it. You just have to have the energy and the drive to do so. It's it's innate. That's part of who you are. You just have to have the drive and the energy and not give up and say, oh, well, my life is always like this. It's my destiny to be unhappy. It's just going to be that way my whole life. Well, it probably will if you have that attitude. You have to stop saying, woe is me, life is hard, my cup is empty. You have to start saying, why is my cup empty? Well, because I'm not getting the things I want and need. That's why. But, stop thinking about the problem's outside of you. The problem isn't. It's inside of you. Why do you need those things? Well, because I'm insecure. I'm afraid I'm not good enough. I'm not lovable. I'm not competent enough, whatever. I'm not attractive enough. I don't have enough money. You can come up with all kinds of things that are the problem, but all those things are only problems because you're insecure. You have this fear, or you're, whatever the fear is, that's why those things are a problem.
Mm.
So you start working on that. Well, where did that come from? And you'll probably find out something when you were a preschooler or a young child. Something happened, some emotional event in your life that may have been totally unimportant in the big picture. It
Mm.
may have been trivial from everybody else's viewpoint, but from your viewpoint, it was a life changer. And carrying that kind of baggage around, all your life. So that's a little bit about how you become just be love. Now, what be love means is that you care about other people. It's not about you. Instead of woe is me, instead of I'm not getting what I want, it's about others. What can I give? How can I make someone else happy? Not what makes me happy, but how can I make someone else happy? How can I, have my interactions with other people always be positive? So when I leave my interaction with that person, they feel good. They feel positive. I've helped them get through their day and with their struggles a little bit. Okay, if that's what you want to do, then eventually you'll find out that that's what makes you happy, is if you can help other people. And you can let other people walk away with a smile or just feeling better than they did before. That makes you happy. So pretty soon, that insecurity and other things go away because everybody likes you. People crowd around. You're a very popular person all of a sudden because you care about others and not just about yourself. Everybody mostly cares about themselves. And if you don't, well, you'll stand right out, I hate to say like a sore thumb because it'll be a good positive thing. You'll stand out like a perfectly healed thumb, yes, that used to be sore. And you will. Suddenly your insecurities will start to melt away. But if you don't do it because it's real and that's how you feel, then it won't work. If you say, well, I'll act like that. I'm just going to act as sweet and nice and helpful as I can. And then what I expect is that people are going to start to like me and they're going to do all these things and it's going to be wonderful. But you're not being it. You're acting. And it's not good enough to be, it's not good enough to act like you're love or act like you're kind or act like you care. You have to really care. You have to really be kind. You really have to be love. Otherwise, it comes across as another manipulation. You're doing something to get a particular reaction from somebody else. And okay, you can pull that off for a couple of weeks, but eventually the real you shines through. You can't live your life in an image that's empty. You'll start to feel hollow inside and like there's no substance in your life. It's all fake. It's all put on. So
Mm.
it's not behavior we're trying to change here. It's who you are. It's what's inside of you, what's real. But if you get to the point that serving other people, being useful, being helpful, being caring, being considerate and kind, and compassionate, and you really are that way, you're not acting that way, you will find your life will become happy and cheerful. You'll laugh a lot and you will feel great. Yeah, I know that sounds like it's impossible. Oh, if I started being nice to people, they'd walk all over me. I'd be the doormat. I'd have to wash the dishes, clean the house, take care of the kids, earn the money. I'd have to do everything myself, and everybody else would take a vacation. That's what would happen if I tried to be nice to people. I'd be abused. Well, that's not the case. Maybe that would be the case if you pretend to be nice to people,
Mm.
but that's not the case if you really are nice to people. If you really do give, you don't become the doormat. Matter of fact, you become just the opposite. You start to gain personal power, and people will come to you and ask for your advice because you're not just a whiner or somebody who, cares about themselves. So you'll start to gain personal power, status amongst your friends. And you'll probably listen a lot more and talk a lot less than what you do now. It'll just change who you are if you can really be this. But now that's another one of those catches. It's easy to say, just get rid of your fears, be love. But it's much harder to do. You have to really, really want to at a deep level, and then just be it and see what happens.
I
Make
think you
that
made
who you are.
an important piece there about you'll find that you'll be listening more than talking. I think we also have an idea of what other people want, right? And most of the time, even with what I do in counseling, most of the time people just want to be heard. They just want to have someone listen to them. And sometimes due to the, my education and my desire to help people, I can sometimes, even though listening, I may want to help them and they may not want that help in the way that I think they do, or in the way that I imagine they do, or it's more about, honestly, most people just want to be heard. So it's mostly about the listening. And that is so much more helpful than anything we could possibly do, because the listening is everybody wants to be heard. And most of the time, if you talk to people, most of the time they're mostly upset about the fact that you're not listening to me. You're not hearing me. And it's like, well, no, I'm listening, but maybe I'm not hearing what you need to hear, or maybe I'm not hearing exactly what you're saying. But so I think part of being helpful to people is really listening to know what it actually is that they want help on, or if it's just to be heard and listened to.
Well, that's a very good point, because if somebody comes to you for help, the first thing you need to do is listen. Yeah. But it's not listen with your intellect. You have to listen at a more intuitive level. You have to understand their feelings, not just the words they say. You have to feel what they feel. And if you can convey to them somehow that you feel their feelings, that that you actually can appreciate where they are, then that's the thing that makes them feel a lot better. That's what they mean by being heard. Because you could just sit there and listen and not really hear anything. You could hear it all, but not really give them what they need, which is to understand what they're going through and why they're going through it. Now, the problem comes when, after you've heard them, you say, oh, I know what they need. You see, that's the problem. That's the trick. And everybody tends to do that. Oh, I know what they need. They need to, change this attitude and do this and do that and do this other thing. So then you tell them. And that just puts them right back in that same bad place that they were before you listened to them. Now there's somebody else telling them how to be and what to do and pointing out their faults. Well, people don't want to have their faults pointed out. When they're ready, they'll change themselves. When they're not ready, telling them what they need to do to change is not helpful. Usually it pushes them in the opposite direction, makes them angry. So the point is, this idea of helping people, I say that, love is about being helpful to people, but that doesn't mean you push your help onto other people. Again, that's self-centered. I know and you don't. But here, I'll help you. Here's what you need to do. People don't want to hear that. That's part of what makes them miserable in the first place, is a struggle between themselves and the rest of the world that's trying to manipulate them to be what the rest of the world wants them to be. So you can say some big things, some big picture things, like, I see that you have some anxiety around these issues. I can hear, the sadness you have around these issues. Now, what do you think you could do about that? And let them do it. In other words, ask them questions. Be a coach, not a, what's the other word? not telling them what to do, not giving them solutions, because those are your solutions to their problem. And it has to be their solutions to their problem. So instead of counseling them in the sense of telling them what to do, coach them and say, well, okay, you've got stress about this, I can just feel the anxiety and the upsets you have here. What could you do differently? What could you do differently? And if they say, yeah, but it's all about my husband, or it's all about my wife, or it's all about my kids, I need them to change. You have to say, well, you can't change them like that. You can only change yourself. So let's think, what could you do to deal, to not feel this way? And eventually you'll get them to thinking about what they could do, and now you're on the right track. But if you immediately want to solve their problem by explaining what it is they need to be and how they need to be it, that generally is just not helpful. And even those people who will listen and say, you're right, gee, I really do need to be that way, thank you very much, it almost never helps them. Look at them 2 or 3 weeks later and they're just the same people they were before, because it wasn't their solution. They have to come to the solution. So you're much better off being a coach than a counselor. Because if you can coach people to where they own the solution and they finally see, oh, I can only change myself, well, what could I do? And basically the only thing they can do is accept that behavior that they don't like if they can't change it. If they say, I can't change it, then if I'm going to struggle with it, my life will just be struggle all the time. So what can I do? Well, accept that behavior. That's just the way they are. They're growing up too, and they're not complete. They've got problems and issues and things just like you do. And those things you're struggling with are their issues. And until they're ready, they're not going to change. And you telling them how they ought to change is just as bad as somebody telling you how you should change. It just doesn't work. So, yeah, it's much better to be a coach and let people go at their own pace, because they may say, well, I don't see anything I can do different. And you might offer a suggestion that, well, why does it make you so angry? What's the underlying thing here that makes you angry? And eventually you will get them to a point where they see that it's their issue is why they're angry. This somebody else makes me angry is not the way it works. You're angry because of what's inside of you, and that's where the change have to go. But you'll never get them there if you explain the answer to them. Mm-hmm. Or even if you just say what I just said, that won't work. You have to get them to go there. And if they've come to you to help them kind of work through it, then coach them, but don't tell them. Make them figure it out on their own. And if they're just not ready, if you try to probe something and they just can't go there, they just won't. Well, then you just have to let it alone. That's just something they're not ready to do yet. And, there's just not much you're going to be able to do to help that person, because they aren't ready to take responsibility for the problem. And until they are, well, the problem isn't going to be solved. Doesn't matter how many therapists they go to, or, how many procedures they have done or anything else, the problem's still going to be there. So,
yeah, that's certainly talking about procedures. It's like, as we reach the community that's starting to age, people are not doing that well. I really love all the people on Facebook that have AI pictures. It's like, really? That helpful for you?
Yeah.
But yeah. Yeah. It's
aging is a difficult process. If you haven't gotten rid of your fears, those fears tend to get worse. When you're young, you can kind of stuff those fears away. You stick them under the rug. You don't notice them. Nobody else notices them. You just go on with your life. But the older you get, the bigger that pile under the rug gets, and the longer it stays there, the smellier it gets, from you sticking all that stuff under the rug. And by the time you get older, that stuff starts to come out. It starts to push at you and gnaw at you from the inside. And you're much better getting rid of it when you're younger than when you're older, because then it'll come back and rise right up to the front again when you're older. So work on it now. You're right. What do they say? Getting old is not for sissies, right? Getting old is a tough thing. Well, it is in a lot of ways. Things change. Your body doesn't respond like it used to respond. You can't do the things you used to do. Well, I'd say a really good, antidote to old age is stay young, stay active, exercise, eat well. And when I say exercise, that means really spend some time, some hours every day, not 10 minutes, a day or 10 minutes a week, but really spend some hours every day exercising, stay healthy. Or do whatever you have to do. Do aerobic exercises, do weights, roll around on a mat, do whatever you need to do in order to stay fit, limber, so that you can move. That's good for you. And if you do that, what you'll find is that you don't get so much older. Matter of fact, if you're already old, you'll find you get younger. That's what happened to me. I started feeling like I was old about 20 years ago. I'm almost 80 now. So 20 years ago I was 60, almost 60. And I was feeling it. I'd sit down in one of these big easy chairs that you sink into, and it was a little bit of a struggle to get back out of that chair. It's like, this used to be easy. Now this is kind of hard. And I thought, well, that's not acceptable. So I started doing more of those, not the lift heavy weight exercises, because that's not what helps you get out of the chair. It's all those small muscles and your coordination, and there's a lot of things going on there that most of your core muscles are what's required. So then you start doing exercises with those, and pretty soon you are much younger than you were physically. So a lot of that old age, the things that happen to you in old age, are things we let happen to us. They're not things that impose themselves on you, but it's things that you actually bring about because you're not eating well, you're not exercising. When you're 20 years old, you don't have to exercise. Life is an exercise. You're running around doing things all the time. But when you're, 60 years old, then life is no longer such an exercise anymore, and you start to deteriorate. And things you used to do easily, you can't. But you can roll that backwards and do them easily again if you just get out there and exercise. Join the bigger world. Get out and do things, meet people, go places. Don't sit home and watch TV all day. That kind of thing will just make you old long before you have to be old. That's we don't have to accept a lot of the old age things at all. I see people that are 5, 10 years younger than me walking around with walkers. And I think, wow, that's sad. And it's not because they had a stroke or something else. It's just they're just old.
I'm afraid.
And afraid. Yeah, they have these fears, and they're afraid, and they're and they have basically created that out of their own belief of what happens when you're old. They accept it rather than say, well, let me do something about it. In their mind, you can't do anything about it. It's just growing old.
Right.
That's not true.
Right.
You can. It just takes some effort and some time. But it's the use it or lose it. When you stop using your body real actively, when you stop doing that, then your body starts to deteriorate because you stop using it.
Yeah.
And then when it starts to deteriorate, you slow down even more and do less.
Right.
And then it deteriorates more, so you slow down and do less. And that's the problem. It starts about 50 and just keeps on adding, as you get older. You keep doing less and less and less. And pretty soon something falls on the floor and you really can't bend over to pick it up anymore, because your back hurts and your knees hurt and, nothing works like it used to. Well, all that stuff will work like it used to if you do those exercises. It won't be quick.
Walking. Easiest thing.
What?
The easiest thing is walking. And that was why
Yeah.
I started. There's a quote, and it's just, I'm not going to quote the actual thing, but he just talked about, it's a philosopher who, basically was saying he was walking his way to health because stillness is illness, which is perfect. Mind you, it was a philosopher from the 1800s and he only lived to 47. However.
Well, that's probably why he only lived to 47, because he came to that idea too late.
Maybe.
But yes, you need to do that. And walking is a good way. Swimming is even better but most of us just don't have a place to go swim for hours. But so walking, everybody can go out and walk.
Right.
There's lots of exercises you can do. One of the things I recently put in my exercise room was a mat. It's what's called a tumbling mat. It's about that thick.
Okay.
So, and just the things that you can do, just rolling around on it, just going from one position to the next and so on, throwing your feet around as you move all of that is just part of your coordination and strength of these core muscles. So just getting down and playing on the mat, and of course you can always do things on mats like push-ups and sit-ups and that kind of thing, but without even doing those, just getting down on the floor, for a lot of people, just getting down on the floor is a big problem because then they have trouble getting up. But I've been there. I've done that, to where I looked at the floor and says, that's too much pain and too much trouble to bend down and pick that up. But not anymore, so you can turn the clock back a lot if you have if you have, again, the intent, to do it.
Right.
So old age is not nearly as difficult as it has, as it is for most people. It doesn't have to be that difficult.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not sure where that came out of just be love, but anyway, there it is.
Well, it's that part of us that is fearful, and that seems to be the new big thing. I mean, I guess because of the baby boomers that are all in their 60s now, it's become a bigger thing, like especially on social media. It's like it's a big thing. People are they're really either accepting from a good place, or they're just like trying to do it. I mean, I know somebody who's been on hormone therapy for like 30 years. She won't give it up. She looks great, but it's like, I don't know. It just seems weird. Her body's not allowing her to age because she's on hormone therapy. I don't know. It's just weird what people are doing to, what are they saying? 40, 20, 50s, they're just trying too hard to be so, but it's all that fear. It's acceptance in a negative way, in that accepting that it can't be better unless I, do some procedure or do something to.
Well, if there actually are procedures or things that you can do, or hormone therapy that actually helps your body, stay younger, well, okay, that's a good idea. I don't have a problem with that. Go do them. But the problem usually is that they have side effects.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to, and they also have expense perhaps, but they have side effects. That's the thing. You don't want to, they say, rob Peter to pay Paul. You don't want to end up with cancer because you were trying to stay younger. So you have to balance all of that. And if you have the money to spend, I don't know what it costs, but if you have the money to, say, get a facelift or change your body, or go to, do therapies that actually do make you feel better because you look better, you feel better. Well, that's okay. If you can afford it and you're going to put up with the pain of the recovery and the rest of it, then that's all right. I don't find those kind of things a problem. It's not like you should always be natural. What is natural? It,
Sure, my hair's not natural. But everything else is. But yeah, I don't know. I find it fascinating because I think most people do it again because of fears, though, right? Yes, it may make you look better on the outside, but are you actually addressing the fears? Once you have these procedures done, are you then saying, breathing and going, okay, I look good, I look great, I feel good, I can just be love? Or am I still, doing things for the wrong reasons?
well, I think it probably allows you to stuff those negative things under the rug better. you know, you can you can say, well, now at least I'm looking good, so I feel better about me.
Mhm.
Whereas when you were all wrinkly and didn't look so good, you kind of feel sorry and everything's kind of more negative and you don't like the way you look and then you don't like interacting with people because you don't like the way you look. Well, all of that's just ego. Better get rid of the ego. All right. That's a better solution. It doesn't cost much. It just costs some time and attention. Better to get rid of the ego, but if that's not something you're going to do, well, okay, look better. You'll feel better for a while, but no, it's not solving the problem.
Mm.
It's not helping get rid of the fear. It's not really going to make you happier in the long term, but it will make you feel better, which makes you feel more positive, which will help you, in the short term. It's what do we say? It's fixing symptoms,
Right.
not fixing problems. So as long as you realize that it's just fixing symptoms and not fixing problems, and you kind of admit to yourself that fixing the problem isn't something that you're going to do, or
Mm.
you've tried a bunch of times and you just don't seem to get there, well, then fixing the symptoms is better than not fixing anything at all. So it just depends on the person. I'm not I'm not one to say people shouldn't do this or shouldn't do that. They should do whatever makes them feel happy, whatever makes them feel better. They should do it, but be aware of the downsides. Be aware of the costs they may be money costs, but there may be other costs. There may be other health costs or other things. So just be aware of the whole picture. Don't jump into something that will hurt you even more later. That's the big, you know, thing to pay attention to. But otherwise, make yourself beautiful if that's what you want. If that helps you get through the day, that's fine. But it's not going to fix who you are. A beautiful face will not produce, a beautiful soul, or it won't produce a beautiful person inside. It's all part of your image and it's all part of you know, your interaction through that image. It's not fundamentally fixing any of the problems. Better to fix the problem, always. But you can't fix the problem, then if you can fix the symptom of the problem, well, that's the second best thing. But you have to be aware that it doesn't fix anything deep inside. The fix is superficial.
Yeah. So just be love.
Love. Three words. What could be any simpler than that? Just let go of your fear. If you let go of your fear, you won't be self-centered. If you let go of your fear, you won't have any of those issues. Your life will be happy. All your buttons where people get you upset and annoyed and things that bother you all disappear. You won't have any buttons. Your life will be not only more fun, but you will be a more effective person You'll be more helpful. You'll do things, everybody around you will benefit from that. Whereas if you just, do something cosmetic or something that just shows on the outside, well, everybody around you isn't really affected too much by that. It's you are mainly the ones affected by that. Although some may be. Some people on the outside might be affected. You might get more attention or something if you look nice, that's true. But that's not a real big player as you get older. People expect you're not in the games of impressing people with your looks when you pass 70 or even 65. You're kind of out of that game of impressing people with your gorgeous looks. So you should have grown past the need for that by the time you get to that age. You can just be who you are, and then you can impress people by the fact that you don't have any fear, and you're all grown up, and you're helpful, and you're kind, and you're considerate, and you get your positiveness from your ability to be helpful to others. And that's much better actually than being good looking. That'll get you a lot further, that'll get you a whole lot more personal value than, well, anything about your appearance. That's real stuff. That's not just superficial.
It's funny though, people that are happy and loving, their appearance, it shines. I guess that's what
Shines. Yes, they shine like a light. Absolutely. Because they smile a lot. And a smiling face is just, it makes everybody else around them feel good. If you are talking to somebody and they're just happy and they smile a lot and they're perky and everything, well, you feel a little more like that yourself. And you just enjoy being around people like that. And just the opposite's true. If there's somebody who's always sad and always complaining and always, never smiles, always has this angry look on their face, you don't really want to hang around those people very long because they'll just drag you down to where they are. And it's like, nice meeting you. Bye-bye. I have to go. Because they're just not much fun to be around. So, yes, it makes a huge difference. Much more difference than if you happen to be prettier or not as pretty. You see, that's a small difference. But if you happen to be just a really positive person, you don't have to be pretty. If you're just happy and you smile and you're very helpful and whatever, people will just love you. They will care about you. They will love you. They will go out of their way to help you. You'll have all of those benefits. It doesn't really matter. Your appearance becomes not important.
Yeah, I'm not sure you're going to ever find a woman who agrees with that statement other than the shining part.
Probably not. Well, but for women, their appearance is more important. That's pretty central to being female. Men, not so much.
Not so much.
But to women, that is now we're just talking like instincts. We're human beings, we're animals, and we animals have instincts. And there's certain things we just need to do and be in order to be in line with our instincts. and being female and being attractive, that's a necessary combination, particularly as you're younger.
Except in the bird kingdom. I don't quite get that one. How are the males pretty in the bird kingdom?
Yes, that's true. It's just the opposite of that. But, not in humans anyway. But
No.
That sort of thing is just instinctual, and it is what it is, and we need to accept it and celebrate it, and that's fine.
Although for a woman, finding a male that's more attractive than them is really hard. It's like, oh no, you're too pretty. Go away.
Well, that's it's not that never happens. What happens is that if she's too pretty, a lot of the guys then feel insecure
Sure.
And they can't even ask her out or talk to her because she's just too pretty, and she wouldn't like me because I'm not, handsome enough to, so she becomes intimidating.
Yes.
And that way, that's unfortunate because there's a lot of really nice people that she doesn't meet because they won't go over and introduce themselves because they're intimidated by that exceptionally, good looks. So it has its upside and its downside. That blade cuts both ways.
Yes. Definitely. I used to have a girlfriend like that. But because I was always the bubbly, happy one, then guys would approach me and then their friend would want my friend. It's like, oh, okay. But, I didn't care. Like, okay. Perfect.
Well, it's much better to be approachable in
Right?
the eyes of other people than that that thing that is unattainable. You don't want to be in that. And it's really hard to be anything that's exceptional.
Yeah.
Exceptionally beautiful, exceptionally handsome, exceptionally intelligent, exceptionally, gifted in some way or another. It's a difficult thing too. Again, that's a blade that cuts both ways. When you have that, that tends to often drive the rest of your life, that exceptionality. And that can be good or it could not be so good.
Mm.
People start treating you differently, and you have a whole different set of expectations that you have to, constantly perform. And it's not the same as it has its own hard side to being exceptional.
Mm.
Unless you're exceptionally good at investing in the stock market, then everybody loves that. I don't know if that has a downside other than if you get too much money, it tends to feed your ego and
Yeah.
make you not the nicer person. If you don't watch it, if you don't grow up first, it tends to be an ego
Driven.
enhancer. Maybe that's the downside of that. But yeah,
Just
you can imagine all the guys that are 6.5 feet tall, and everybody's telling them, well, why don't you play basketball? Well, they just don't feel like playing basketball. Thank you. That's not what I want to do. Yeah, but you should. You're 6.5 feet tall. You're 7 feet tall. You need to go play basketball. And they'd have to put up with that with their whole life. That there's always pressure to do certain things and be certain ways and perform that a person that doesn't have that exception never has to deal with
Mm.
any of that stuff where people to push you into what they know you should be doing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like the little child that happens to be really good at, say, playing the piano at 5 years old. And then that child grows up with piano lessons and teachers and all things, but he doesn't go out and play ball. He doesn't have a lot of friends, because one day he's going to be the star, in the concert. And he may one day be that, but the price that you pay is also significant. That's what I mean. You have to consider all the sides. There's upsides and downsides to everything. And you need to consider all of them when you make decisions about the things you want to do.
Yeah. Yeah. It's an interesting world. So just be love.
Just be love, right? Whether you're 3 feet tall or 7 feet tall, if you just love, it'll work out no matter what. That's all you have to be. You don't have to be beautiful. You don't have to be smart. You don't have to be really anything other than just be love. And if you are, your life will be happy. People will like you. Everybody will want to be around you, and your personal power will grow. And it doesn't matter whether you're unexceptional in every way or exceptional in every way. It just won't matter.
Right.
Just be love, and your life will be good, and you will be happy.
All right. Well, I think that's a good place to stop.
Oh.
All right. You've been listening to News of the Heart. We've been getting to the heart of what matters with Tom Campbell and Just Be Love. Until next month. Thanks, Tom.
Thank you, Laurie.